So let's understand the first hurdle, why some children can forget their spellings over a period of time. Now this period of time can vary from child to child. So for some children it can be a matter of a few minutes, others for a matter of a few hours, some a matter of days, or some a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. So for those students who are doing regular spelling tests, sometimes they can perform very well in a spelling test, but when you ask them the same spellings 2 or 3 weeks later, those spellings have disappeared or seem to be gone. That same problem can happen for some children within the same week of the spelling test, and therefore they're the children who struggle with spelling tests and feel they're very unconfident with spelling. Now let's understand this. Imagine you're asked to go to the supermarket to get bread, cheese and milk. How do you do that? You just remember bread, cheese and milk. You say it over and over again. But funnily, you don't have to remember in 5 weeks' time or 5 months' time or 5 years' time that on that particular date, that's what you got in the supermarket. So you put that into what's called your short-term memory. Now your short-term memory is mainly auditory, when you say something in your head. And therefore, it's a little bit like a cassette tape. And we all know that a cassette tape only plays one way. You can only play a cassette tape forwards. It's similar to trying to speak backwards. That doesn't happen. Now, what I want you to do is to take a moment and remember some things from your long-term memory. So, for example, I want you to remember a favourite present you got as a child. I want you to imagine a favourite holiday you went on when you were a child. And lastly, I want you to remember a memory when you were at school as a child, and hopefully a positive one. Take a moment to do that. Now the question is, how did you do that? Did you say something in your head, or did you make a picture? And you will find that most people remember things from their long-term memory by making pictures. So why does this happen? How come we have a thing called long-term visual memory? Well, if you take the time from Stone Age man up to modern day man, happened over a period of billions of years. But for many of those years, we actually didn't speak. So this short-term auditory memory only started to develop relatively recently. But the long-term visual memory was developing over that period of billions of years. So we use visual memory, for example, to remember the faces of our families, the faces of our enemies, the position of the sun to know what time of day it was, the colour of the berries we were ripe to eat, etc. And therefore, the visual part of the brain in humans is very well developed. In fact, a huge part of processing in the brain is associated with visual processing. So therefore, when it comes to forgetting spellings, many children are using their short-term auditory memory instead of their long-term visual memory. By using their short-term auditory memory, very much like the cassette tape, their spellings can be forgotten very easily. Equivalent to imagine you have your favourite singer or artist recorded onto your cassette tape, and then you go back to the beginning of the same slide and record on a second artist. What happens to the first one? Yes, they disappear. Similar thing with spellings. So for some children, they can do their weak spellings and remember them and do a spelling test okay. And then they go back to learn their week 2 spellings. They go back to the beginning of the cassette tape, record their week 2 spellings, which records automatically over week 1, and therefore those spellings are gone. In other cases, children have a shorter capacity auditory memory. Say they might, for example, learn their spellings for Monday and their tape is full. And then they go back to Tuesday and they record back over Monday, and they're the children who really struggle and they dread going to school because of the spelling tests. So these are the children, as I said, who lack confidence in spelling. So let's discover something. What's the last letter of the word discovery? That's right, it's Y. Now, how did you do that? You just made a picture of the word discovery and you went to the end of the word and saw it was Y. You didn't have to go to your sound part and say, is it an I, is it an E, is it a Y? You did it visually. So we've now made a discovery that the good spellers do this automatically. They're able to visualize words, put words in their long-term visual memory, and therefore do not have difficulty with spelling. What we do in the Dyslexia Association is we help children to visualize words, She'll show them how they can develop their visual memory so they put the words into their long-term visual memory to make them happy, confident spellers.